Okay, today in this video we're going to be looking at the next step in graphing, which is you're given 2 points, only 2 points, that are on the line. And specifically they could be any random 2 points on the line. So not necessarily a y-intercept, just any 2 points. And you're not given the slope, you're not given any piece of information. And what we're going to do is we're going to build on what we've already done. And the goal, again, every single time, is to write an equation in the form y equals mx plus b. So remember, in that we want to basically take the m and the b and replace those with numbers. Okay, first off we're going to start with doing that with graphing. Okay, we're going to look at both how to do it with graphing as well as with algebra. And this is what we have done in class as well. We practiced finding the slope between 2 points using graphs and also using algebra. So what we're looking at is, instead of them giving slope and y-intercept, they're giving us just 2 points. What we know is we need to go ahead and figure out the 2 pieces of information. We need to figure out the m, which is our slope, and we're going to do that basically the way we have done it in class. And we need to figure out our b, which is the y-intercept. What we're going to do is, just like before, we're going to find it by graphing and using algebra, or by using algebra. So what that means is we're going to plot our points and repeat our slope, speed graph all the way until we hit a y-intercept. Or also, the way we did it with algebra is by substituting in our m, our x, and our y and solving for what b would have to be left over. For the slope, we're either going to do that by counting a slope triangle on a graph like we did in class, or using that formula, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, so suppose you only have 2 points on a line. So what that means is, let's say I take any 2 points and put them on a x and y plane. Okay, the question is, how many different lines could I draw through those 2 points? Let's think about that for a second. Is there a way to draw more than one line that goes through those 2 points? Okay, now the answer is no. There is only one exact line that goes through there. Some of you may think, oh, what if I curve it? That's not a line anymore. A line is straight, doesn't have any curves in it. So the same is true no matter where I put 2 points. Again, only one line can go through there. Again, doesn't matter how far apart I put them, only one line can go through there. And that's really important, because when we're given only two pieces of information, which are 2 points, that better be enough to get one unique answer. And it is. Secondly, every single line has to hit at a y-intercept. It has to have a y-intercept. Now I do throw in there with a slope, because if a line has no slope, it will hit a y-intercept. But if a line has straight up and down slope, meaning the line is something like that right there, that would not have a y-intercept. But that, again, does not have a slope. It's called undefined slope, and it's not something we talk about in y equals mx plus b. It's totally different. Okay, and the last thing is, if we take those 2 points we have on the line right there, and we were to count a simple slope triangle like we did in class, okay, count a slope triangle, and you could do that for every single one of these. Okay, if we made slope triangles like that and counted them, we'd be able to get a slope for every single one as well. And that's the principle we're going to go off of here. Okay, so let's look at our first example. And this is the one we were just talking about when we looked at a problem a second ago. So write the equation of the line through the points 2, 7 and 3, 9. First of all, notice, neither of those is the y-intercept. Okay, it's not 0, 4 or whatever. So we have basically no information right now. We do not have our m and we do not have our b. We have nothing that we need to get started here. So all we can do is plot those points. So step 1 is you're going to plot both the points. Make sure that the plotting points part is not going to ever hold you back. If that means you need to sit down and do a ton of practice, that's what you need to do. So I'm going to plot. Then I'm going to count the slope and simplify. And lastly, I'm going to speed graph using the slope until you hit the y-intercept. So what that means is, I'm going to simplify my slope, and let's say I get 1/2. I'm going to take that point that I already have, and I'm going to speed graph that all the way up until I get both ways across, and it should hit the y-intercept, and that'll give me my answer. Remember, what we did before was we had basically already been given step 1 and step 2. So all we did was we went ahead and plotted our point, counted our slope triangle, repeated it all the way across, and when we drew our line, it hit the y-axis. That gave us our y-intercept, and we were done. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start off by plotting those 2 points, 2, 7, and 3, 9. And that's it, simple as that. Next thing we're going to do, step 2, we're going to make a slope triangle. Okay, and one of the things I like to do first is decide, is this going to be uphill or downhill? This is in fact going to be a positive slope, so we want to go ahead and note that, just to remind ourselves. Now what we're going to do is we're going to count our little slope triangle here. It's 2 up, so a 2 goes on top of the fraction. And it's 1 over, so a 1 goes on the bottom. And this is just like what we did in class with our determining the slope between 2 points practice. Okay, we're going to simplify that if we can. However, 2 over 1 can't be simplified, so my slope is 2. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to speed graph. We know the slope is up 2 over 1. We're going to repeat that slope all the way down the line. So feel free to pause it for a second if you need to do that and get your line drawn. Okay, so after we have that done, we look at the graph and notice our y-intercept. Our y-intercept is at 3. Remember, y-intercept means where it hits the y-axis. So in this case, we're talking about right there, which is at 3. As soon as we have that, we have finished the problem. It's as simple as that. We're trying to find the equation of the line, and what we found right there is the equation of the line. Remember, the graph is not our answer. Our answer is y equals 2x plus 3. So when someone says, hey, what's the equation of the line that goes through those 2 points? The answer is y equals 2x plus 3 is the one unique line that would go through 2, 7 and 3, 9. There's only one. Okay, let's look at a second example together. All right, so the first step is to plot those 2 points, negative 2, 7 and 3, negative 8. You can see they're very far apart from each other, which means most likely when we get our slope, it's going to have to be simplified, just like we did in class. So first off, decide if that's going to make a negative or a positive line. It is in fact going to make a negative line, which means down in our answer, we're also going to have a negative sign. From there, I'm going to count my slope triangle. That's a long ways up. If I count that between negative 8 all the way up to positive 7, it makes 15. I don't have to worry about negative 15 or positive 15. Everything's positive when we talk about distance. It's the slope that's negative, the tilt of the line, and we already decided that. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and look at my left to right, my run. If I count across there, it is 5, which then goes on the bottom. I, of course, need to think, how can I simplify? And it simplifies out to 3 over 1. 15 over 5 simplifies out to 3 over 1 with a negative sign. Now, I still need to figure out my y-intercept. I now know this piece down there. I know my slope, but I still need the y-intercept. I can't repeat a slope of up 15 over 5. It just wouldn't fit on this graph paper. So what I need to do is I need to take my simplified slope that I already figured out, this one right here, and I need to apply that to speed graph from both of those 2 points. So I could either speed graph from the bottom one as much as I can, I could speed graph from the top, I could speed graph from both of them. But I want to get however many graphs I can, however many points I can on the graph. So now that's what I'm going to do. Up 3, left 1, repeat, all the way to the top. Okay, it's not that many points, so if you haven't done it already, pause the video real quick and do that. Okay, as you can see, I now have a y-intercept right there at positive 1, which then carries over into my final answer. And the equation of the line that fits negative 2, 7 and 3, negative 8 is negative 3x plus 1. Like I said before, this is something that I see a ton on the geometry homework from my students for next year. So I want to make sure this is something very comfortable for you, so when you are in geometry next year after you pass algebra, you're ready for this, and this is not something that's going to hold you back from being successful. Okay, so now we're going to try a few. Okay, we're going to follow the same method, which is we're going to find the slope, simplify, and then repeat. So to begin with, let's just go ahead and write down the 2 points that you're given, and go ahead and take a second and plot them. I want you to do this first one step by step to make sure you're really getting it. Okay, so hopefully you plotted the 2 points at 1, 3 and -2, -9. Next thing, just to, again to make sure you're really getting it, go ahead and get your whole slope triangle drawn, decide if it's positive or negative, all that good stuff. All right, well, if done correctly, you should have noticed that it is in fact positive. When you count up, it goes up a total of 12 and over a total of 3. Okay, 12 over 3 simplifies out to positive 4 over 1. And now what I want to do is I want to take and I want to speed graph from either and both of those 2 points. So do as many as you can. So pause the video, speed graph the whole thing, and graph the line if you haven't already. All right, so up 4 over 1. And I'm going to repeat as many times as I can, which is not very many. Okay, as you can see, my y-intercept crosses at -1 right there, which means the equation is 4x plus a -1 or 4x minus 1. All right, for the next example, try to do as much of it as you can on your own. Pause the video, see as far as you can get with it before you hit play, and then I'll go through all the steps. Remember, when I do go through all the steps, you can pause at any time just to kind of catch up or to take it from there and finish the problem. All right, so you should have started off by plotting -4, 5 and -8, 6, which are those 2 points there. Counting the slope triangle. In this case, it is a negative line. Counting the slope triangle, it goes up 1 and over 4. That can't really be simplified, so we go ahead and put it straight into our answer. And we're going to speed graph the rest of the way. As you can see, it crosses at 4, so the equation is y equals -1/4 x plus 4. Okay, next we're going to write the equation of the line through the points 6, 7 and -4, 3. So again, pause the video. Do this one as far as you can get on your own. Make sure you understand it. Rewatch it if you need to. And hit play when you're ready. All right. I should have started off by plotting the points -3, 4 and 6, 7. Next, we're going to decide, is that going to be a positive or a negative line? It is, in fact, going to be a positive line. Now we're going to make our slope triangles. It goes up a total of 3 and over a total of 9. 3 over 9 is simplifiable. It simplifies to positive 1/3, which then goes in as our m, or our slope. Now we're going to take that slope of 1/3 and we're going to repeat it and speed graph from either one of the 2 points that we already have. And once you've done that, you'll notice the y-intercept is at positive 5. Okay, another one for you to try. Go ahead and write down your points and try to plot them and do as much as you can of the problem. Hit play when you're finished as far as you can get. All right, so we're going to start off plotting our points, -4, 5 and 2, -7. We're going to decide that it's positive or negative. In this case, it's negative. And we're going to make our slope triangle. It goes from -7 all the way up to positive 5, which is 12. And it goes across a total of 6. 12 over 6 simplifies out to -2 over 1. Last step is apply that up to left 1 repeatedly until we get all the way across the graph. And again, the graph should show us it crosses at -3. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at how to solve these algebraically. Remember, that means no graph involved. We're just going to use simple algebra. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing two things. We're going to be figuring out the slope using the formula we practiced in class, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And then we're going to be plugging that into y equals mx plus b along with either one of the points. In fact, basically what I do is whatever point looks easier. So let's look at our first example. Write the equation of the line through the points 2, 7, and 3, 9. We've already done this problem, so we're going to look at how to solve this problem using algebra instead. Okay, as you know, we have two things to fill in, m and b. So let's start with m. First, we're going to find the slope, and we're going to do it using that formula. We're going to subtract y2 minus y1. And again, remember in class, we sometimes use this notation where we use like an arch of 9 minus 7, and then on the bottom, arch of 3 minus 2. Okay, 3 minus 2 equals 1, so my slope is 2. Now, if you remember from before, what we had was we were given a slope and 1 point. So we're doing the same thing now. We're going to use our slope as our m, and we're going to pick our x and our y from one of our points. You can actually pick either point. It doesn't matter. That's the good thing about this, is if one of the points looks a lot easier than the other to plug in, go ahead and do that one. Also, if you get started and you get stuck, you could always go back to this point right here and just switch for the other point. For me, I went ahead and I used 3, 9. So 9 is y, m is 2, which is my slope, and x is 3. Remember, the next step after that is to multiply them together, and you're going to get 9 equals 6 plus whatever goes in that blank space. Thinking about it for a moment, you'll probably realize that 3 is what needs to go in that space, so therefore the y-intercept is 3. Okay, we're going to try the second example again together. First step is to find the slope. On top, we take -8 minus 7, which is -15. And on the bottom, 3 minus a -2, which you probably recall, turns into 3 plus 2, which is 5. -15 over 5 simplifies out to -3 over 1. Now we're going to take that -3 along with either one of those points that looks easier to us, and we're going to plug it in. I decided to go with a 7 just to make it simpler in my opinion, and m is -3 and x is -2. Next step is to multiply those two together, which gives us 6. And if I think of 6 plus something equals 7, then that something has to be +1. Alright, so now let's go ahead and try one on your own. So what I want you to do is go ahead first and just set up the whole slope problem, and we'll see if you're able to do that correctly. Then we'll go piece by piece the rest of the way. Alright, so first off, we're going to end up with -9 minus 3 on top, and -2 minus 1 on the bottom. So if you set that problem up correctly so far, you might want to go ahead and pause it and try to simplify it out until the very end for slope. Alright, if you do this correctly, you're going to end up with -12 on top and -3 on the bottom. Negative over negative turns into positive, and 12 divided by 3 is 4 over 1. That 4 is going to go in the place of m, and we can go ahead and go through our process now. Plugging in y, plugging in m, plugging in x. That leaves me with 3 equals 4 plus blank, so therefore the blank number would have to be a -1. Again, another one for you to try. Go ahead and fill in the points and see if you can go ahead and get started. All right, so starting off with our slope, we're going to end up with 6 minus 5 on top. And negative 8 minus a negative 4. Remember again, that negative sign is going to turn into a plus sign, which is going to give us negative 4 on the bottom. Simplifying that out, we take the negative sign out in front or to the top, and we end up with negative 1/4 as our slope. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to pick one point to plug in, whichever one looks easier. To me, I thought the negative 4 looked easier. Okay, from there, when you multiply these together, remember to say of. What is 1/4 of 4? That's 1, or negative 1/4 is the same. Negative times negative makes positive, and then 1/4 of 4 is 1. When I think about what number goes in there to make that make sense, it needs to be a 4, so the correct answer is negative 1/4 x plus 4. Okay, another one for you to try. See as far as you can go with this one on your own. Hit play when you're ready. All right, starting off with our slope. 4 minus 7 is negative 3. And negative 3 minus 6 is negative 9. When you end up with a negative on top and bottom, those are going to turn into positives. And 3/9 simplifies to 1/3. Okay, from there we're going to go ahead and plug it in. I chose a point that I thought would be easier, which is 6, 7. I chose it because there's no negatives. Remember, what we want to do now is we want to think, when I go to multiply 1/3 times 6, what is 1/3 of 6? Which is in fact 2. That means the number that goes in the box to make that make sense is 5. And so my y-intercept is 5. Okay, look at another example for you to try on your own. Go ahead and go as far as you can with it. See if you can get your final answer. All right. On top, we're going to end up with negative 7 minus 5, which is negative 12. On the bottom, 2 minus a negative 4. That, of course, is going to turn into a positive 4, which makes 6. Negative 12 over 6 ends up being negative 2/1. Plugging that into the problem, I can pick whichever one looks easier to me, but I went ahead with negative 4, 5. And then negative times negative equals positive. In order for this to be true, the number has to get lower to get from 8 to 5, so that must be a negative in there, and it is in fact a negative 3. Okay, now that you finished the video, this is something I'm doing now, which is putting little puzzles or things like that at the end. The first person that goes ahead and gives me the answer to this riddle and has completely succeeded in filling out their notes 100% will receive a raffle ticket and a piece of candy today. So make sure you're the first person to bring me the answer to what this picture is saying as a phrase.